And you're very welcome to another edition of the Breadwinners podcast. I'm your host, Porry Kilfrey. Thank you very much for giving me your ears for the next 45 minutes or so. And yes, once again, I have an unbelievable guest with me today. Actually, Regan, you're very welcome to the Breadwinners podcast. The very first question we ask to let our listeners know, who are you and, what do you do?
Oh, well, yes, my name is Alana Regan, and I am a business and mindset coach. Do you want me to elaborate on that at this stage, or?
Well, Alana, I'm going to actually ask you the second question is what is a business and mindset coach? Because I think this is the Breadwinners podcast. It's a lot of business owners and entrepreneurs really delving to see what exactly is mindset. Because you've actually, I think it's one of your quotes that I read, success is 95% mindset. So maybe we'll start there.
Okay, yes, success is 95% mindset and 5% strategy. So, I think it's very interesting. I think it's a really exciting time. And as you say, a lot of people are talking about mindset, and you hear mindset being banded around. And, oh, I've got a positive mindset, or this is a good, we need to have a growth mindset, or, and all of this. But I don't know how many people really understand what we mean when we talk about mindset, and actually how the mind actually works. Because a lot of the time, we do actually have control over our thoughts, but a lot of the time we let our thoughts and our mind control us. So we let outside circumstances get in the way, and yeah, we can. And unfortunately, we are a little bit predisposed to a negative look on things. If there's a statistic, we have to hear a positive reinforcement 5 times to outweigh a negative. You know that analogy. If you
And suppose, Alana, is that just an Irish thing? Is that? But I think it's a common thing in the world, is it?
Yeah, and I think that's a good point. No, it's not just an Irish thing, but I think we're particularly good at it.
So, Alana, about your business, a live experience. Tell us exactly what your day-to-day role is, and what do you do, and suppose what you're really passionate about now.
Yeah, so I suppose I'll give you just kind of a little bit of the background as to why I called it a live experience. To kind of just paint the picture, I suppose, a little bit first. And one of the reasons, and as we were speaking a little bit earlier, how did I get into this industry? Well, first and foremost, it was a journey that I went on for myself. And when I decided, I wasn't particularly happy in a job that I was in, and I wasn't sure if it was the career, the job, me, a combination of everything.
Yeah, like everybody else has, yes. Tell sometimes. Yeah.
Exactly. And so I went on a little bit of a journey of self-discovery. And I discovered, well, of course, part of it is always going to be me. You can't, you can't just, sorry, but it wasn't the career. That's where I was going with this. I really found, actually, I was in the events industry at the time, and I was good at what I did, and I actually was really enjoyed what I did fundamentally, but I just wasn't fitting into the environment in which I was doing it at that time. So through doing some mindset work and working with a coach, I then realized, one of the things I always wanted to do was work for myself. I think I knew that from my 20s. I just hadn't, had the opportunity, I suppose, up until this point to explore that further. So I decided I was going to go out on my own, but I didn't have any grand plan. I had a goal, and I had a bit of a vision, but I didn't have the steps that were going to get me to that vision. But as I used to say, kind of threw myself off the edge of the cliff. And the moment I did it, when you're going to do something big and scary like that, which is leave the good, well-paid job with the bonus structures and everything in place, and go out on your own without knowing whether it's going to work or not, and you may not be able to pay the mortgage. So in that journey, I'd get to the edge of the cliff, and then I would do what so many people do. That voice in your head comes in and goes, "Oh, well, but all of the, you start to look at the positive things. It's like,
Yeah.
oh yeah, but you got to pay the mortgage and you got to do this. So we'll come back in off the edge of the cliff and we'll stay where we are." But we were desperately unhappy where we were. So, I had to do it. The moment I stepped off, I jumped off the cliff and I felt like I soared. That anxiety, that worry, that doubt, that fear, all the stuff that had been kind of, building up in me. The moment I, pushed through that and jumped, I felt alive. Something I hadn't felt in a number of months. So that was when I kind of went, a live experience was born.
So bring me back to that. You're not getting away with that. You're going to have to dig a bit deeper here. So
Oh,
let's really unpack that, because I think there's a huge message in that as well. So whenever you started to have those inklings that you'd like to go out on your own as such, and you were getting to a stage that where you just couldn't go. So take me back to that. What were you doing at that stage, and why were you actually thinking, well, I could do something?
well, as I say, I wasn't happy at the time. And look, something that has always been important to me is to enjoy what I do. Um, there's been a few big, you know, landmarks in my life that have happened that have led me to there, and one of them, which I'll share with you, and it's unfortunately, I lost my brother when I was 20 and he was 23. In a he died in a scuba diving accident. So yes, that was very difficult. It was tragic and all of those things back then. But what it did to me on the positive side of things is it gave me that realization that life can be short. We're here for a good time, not a long time, and I really have to embrace my life going forward. We both loved travel and adventure and all of those things. So if I'm not happy, I'm not going to stay in a position that and let it kind of fester. So I'll start looking for opportunities and ways to improve things. But yeah, the when you start looking at one of the options is to go out on your own, it is big and scary. One of the biggest fears we all have is the fear of failure and the fear of poverty, and both are pretty.
And just looking on that, suppose that as an aspect where people say, like, when you come to a trauma situation, you have to act then. And has that sat with you, suppose, since that time back in your 20s, since your brother sadly passed away, um, and that probably changed you as a person, do you think?
Definitely, it definitely changed my outlook. I think I would like to think I was always a positive person, but it definitely did give me that, as I say, drive to not allow myself to stay in situations that weren't
Mm.
weren't the best that they could be. If I'm not happy, change it. And the only person that can change it is you. I do love the saying, the only problem we've got in this world is ourselves, but also the only solution we've got is ourselves. But sometimes we do need the support of a coach or a mentor to help you access the the self, yourself, that is the solution to your problems.
And when you started to really dig deep on that, talk us through that process. What was there frustration there? Was there? And I know when you try to jump into a business, there's frustration there because you can't just automatically do it. But when you started to work more on yourself as a person, can you tell me what way was that? How did that process? make you move forward more positively or negatively maybe at the start?
No, very positively.
Hmm.
It's something it can be quite interesting when I talk to people. A lot of people are afraid to go there. They think they're going to open up. I don't want to do self-development or self-discovery. I'm afraid that you're going to open up this absolute can of rotten worms. But it's really the opposite. And it's actually very empowering, and it really, and this is not me. This is people in general. We all have so much more potential than we are getting anywhere close to accessing. But and again, we talk about that voice in the head that prevents you from jumping off the cliff, prevents you from taking some of the actions that you want to take. Jigs, it's a whole other thing to unpack, but we call them paradigms. And we all have a lot of self-limiting beliefs as well. And a lot of our self-limiting beliefs are things that we picked up from childhood that we're still carrying around in our subconscious mind that's preventing us from doing things now because we don't believe we're good enough, intelligent enough, talented enough, whatever that is. And when you start to unpack that and realize that a lot of that is BS, it's very, I suppose, liberating, and it gives you a lot more confidence and support, both personally and then through what you learn, and to enable you to take some of those bigger, scarier moves.
Okay, so it's the paradigm. We have to shift here. Let's get the sleeves rolled up and let's get down. So, when did you notice that it was a paradigm? And what is, for anyone that doesn't know, what is a paradigm? Because I'm sure that's probably something you didn't realize that was holding you back, and then you started to get into it, and you go, Jesus, look at this. So what is it? Unpack a paradigm for me.
Yeah, a paradigm is a multitude of habits and beliefs. So we're getting into the lessons here, and so it comes down to the workings of the mind. We started talking about that at the beginning of this, and what is mindset? And mindset is the first and foremost is an understanding of the mind and how the mind works, right? If we take there's a great actually I have one here. Here's one I made earlier. Have you ever seen this? Have you ever seen
No,
this?
what is that?
Okay. Call him the stick man.
So that's the stick man. Yeah. So for our podcast listeners, yeah, it's it's like a stick man. Yeah. Sorry, I can see it a bit better. And it's a representative of yourself, obviously, you as a person. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Gotcha.
So it's a stick man. It's like what you used to draw as a kid, except the body used to just be a line. It's two circles, right? It's one big circle at the top, which is divided in two. And that's the mind, and that's representing the top part of that is representing the conscious mind, and the bottom half is representing the subconscious mind. Yeah. 96 to 98% of everything that you do is driven by what's going on in the subconscious mind. And what's going on in the subconscious mind is a multitude of beliefs and habits that you've picked up along the way, a lot of which got programmed in there in early childhood and through your kind of formative years. So we all have, this is where, when we talk about limiting beliefs, this is where they come from. They're not true, but they're a belief or a habit that got programmed into the subconscious mind. And it was something that really stuck with me. It's like, yeah, when you do that, I know I should be doing something. I know I could, I know I should, but, and that little but comes in.
And that's where the the work you do in yourself, and you figure out, well, this is what I'm saying to myself, but you don't know you're I'm making a bit of sense here, but you don't really know that you're saying it to yourself, but you actually are, and it's on a subconscious level, which is the deepest level, which is 95% of where everything happens. Um, yeah, so unpacking that is it's quite a lot, but it's Alana, you've explained it really well. So what?
I, I hope so.
No, it's a Friday evening here when we're recording, so we're just trying to unpack everything from that paradigm. So that paradigm there is I can't, you can't, but
Yeah.
those kind of words.
Yeah. I'd say everything, for even the example of, my example of going out and setting up my own business. It's like, yes, I really want to do this, and you get excited about it, and then the worry, the doubt, the fear, that voice comes in going, but sometimes it's, who do you think you are? You're not good enough to do it on your own, or whatever. That voice and that inner critic, and that comes, as I say, from the paradigm and the subconscious mind.
So let's get back into the business aspect, because then suppose after you did that little bit of work in yourself and you realized I can do something here. I can change the way I think. I can, and then as things progress, alive your business, a live experience, it started to blossom. Let's call it about 5 years ago, Alana.
Yes.
And suppose where did you see the requirement for that particular type of business in the market? And as we were touching on it, COVID was a terrible thing, but was a really good thing for people that could connect online. So it's not just in Ireland or the UK; it's worldwide now that you have your services and people are taking them.
Yeah, well, obviously, COVID had a big impact on the world, and it has changed the way we work. It's changed the way we think. It's changed the priorities that people have, which I think, I do recognize that, we can't ignore that a lot of people suffered a lot through COVID for various reasons, and I would never belittle that. And obviously, that's something that, But I do feel that people who didn't lose anything of great value to them during that time are actually, a lot of them, coming out better,
Yeah.
because it did give them the time to reflect, did give them the time to, um, you know, see that, work-life balance is the importance of it, and to kind of de-stress, and all of those things.
Because we are a little bit mental as Irish for working. If we're not working, we're wondering what we should be doing. If we're not doing, and I think we just are. We're just naturally, programmed to be always doing. And suppose when people aren't doing, they don't maybe find. I'm not going to say they don't find value in themselves, but they're not out grinding every day. And the amount of people I spoke to who naturally would be on flights, who would be flying all over the world, who'd be doing business deals, who'd be in London and Australia, didn't have time to think. But whenever they did, necessarily speaking, do you feel like that helped our society more than than actually now, as you said, coming out of it actually better because they understand that maybe they need that little bit of time for themselves?
I think it did, but I now am looking out there, and we do seem to be getting back to the pace that we were at pre-COVID.
So
That
we haven't.
and that's where a lot of people are realizing that they things had improved, and now they're kind of going back to where they were.
Yeah. And getting those learnings, is that something that you constantly have to maybe talk to your clients about and maybe explain? those aspects again, because self-care is very, very important when it comes to your mindset, obviously.
Well, it's very important when it comes to everything. Um, like it's it's the analogy of putting your own oxygen mask on first, and we don't do that as a people. It's like, oh, I can't do something for me. I've got my business to run, or I've got my job to do, and I've got my family to look after, and I've got my friends who need things, and I've got my parents that need stuff, and all. I don't have time for me. But how can you be the best for all of those people if you're not looking after yourself? If you invest, an hour in yourself and taking care of yourself, and giving back, you can be so much better when you're showing up for everybody else. I talk about, we talk about time and time management, and we can't manage time, but we can manage what we do with our time. And a lot of the time, like anything, an investment of an hour in you and your self care can make you so much more effective in all the other areas of your life, that you can get more done nearly. Do you know?
And just reading one of your quotes here as well, it's a habit, and suppose procrastination. It's one of those that um procrastinating about doing something, or that habit of overthinking as well, when it comes to, maybe you just pointed out, your well-being. You overthink it. You get up half an hour earlier, go for that walk. And is that something, when you go into, to meet a business person, or predominantly it's business people you work with, is that something you trigger fairly quickly, and you go, look, it's very obvious, you're not doing the simple basic aspects first of all? Is that where you would start, Alana?
Definitely, that comes into play very, very quickly. I mean, when I when I work with my clients, I take them through a process. Um, but one of the first things we do is get really clear on what people actually want. What do you want your life to look like? What do you want for your business? What are your, we talk about goals, but I talk about goals from a place of, what excites you, not what you think you can achieve. What if you work all the hours of the day, and, whatever that I could, if I do this, this, and this, I could achieve this. Like, no, what actually excites you? What would get you out of bed, jumping out of bed on a Monday morning? And what and again, it's kind of getting that clarity and getting that vision. You can then start to focus a little bit more on the things that really matter, because we get very busy being very busy. Everybody's busy, but who's actually getting anywhere? Are they busy going round and round in circles, or are they busy and moving in a forward trajectory towards the life and the goals that they want to achieve?
And is that a money thing, do you think? Obviously, you have a target for your business revenue. Do you feel that everybody kind of, look, it's all about the money here. This is where I'm going. This is my target. And as you said about clarity, people are very clear of that aspect. So is that something you have to unravel first of all?
The money goals. It's funny that you say that, because the amount of people I speak to, that are business owners, and if I do ask them if they have a money goal, they have a vague idea about what they might like to earn, but they don't actually have a very clear, defined goal. And it's not about the money, but actually having a money goal is quite a good thing. But it's understanding the why behind it. There's no point in having a money goal for the sake of having a money goal. Get clear on why you want that. What's that going to do for you? What's that going to give you in your life? What's going to improve based on you being able to achieve that money goal? Is it supporting your favorite charity? Is it buying your parents a retirement home in Spain so they can get away from the winters? Is it buying yourself a second holiday home? And it doesn't have to be about material things, but it is about whatever connects for you. Why are we doing it?
Is that one of the hardest things to get out of people, really? Do you think?
No, I would say it's one of the hardest things, but for sure people don't go there. So when they first do this, they're a bit like, oh, well, I hadn't thought about that. Well, what do you want for your business? I want to be successful. I want to earn, good money. These are the type of goals that people set, and our mind is actually incredible. Our mind is always trying to get us what we want. Yeah, but most of the time we're telling us what we don't want. Again, it's that little voice in your head. How much of the time are you focusing on where it is that you really want to go versus all the worries and the stresses and the strains that come along with running a business or having a life? So, maybe you have a goal that you want to earn 6 figures, whatever. It doesn't matter what the number is. But let's say you've got a clear idea that you want to earn X amount in your business this year. How much time are you spending focusing on that and ways and ideas and things that you can do to get you there, that you're looking forward for that goal, versus the amount of time that we spend worrying that energy prices are rising, worrying that there's what cost of living, what's it called? Crisis.
Yeah.
Worrying about where your next clients are going to come from or whatever. But you see, so many people spend their time thinking about what they don't want, because we're again, going back to the more kind of predisposed to the negative. More people are more motivated to move away from their fears than they are to move towards their goals. So we need to change that. If we stop moving away from our goals, if we're moving away from our goals, we're moving backwards the whole time, aren't we? It's like, oh, we're afraid of, but that's kind of our fears are chasing us as we try and move away from them, as opposed to moving forward towards something and focusing on what it is that we want, as opposed to focusing on what it is that we're afraid of or that we don't want. Does that make sense?
How long does that take?
How long does it take?
No, I'm intrigued. I'm intrigued listening to you, because it's a very, very deep subject, and it's a very, you touched on a couple of things about people and individuals and business people. They don't know what they want at certain stages of their life. Now that, to me, is a massive statement, because it generally means what you've been doing. You don't know why you've been doing it, or you're initially going, well, I'm not being honest here. I don't really want to do this job, but look, I kind of have to do it. Or, there's aspects that you're putting up with in your family life, or there's aspects you're putting up with yourself. That you've never asked yourself that question, and suppose unpacking all of that and trying to get that into your actual head of really sitting back and going, that's fairly deep, isn't it?
Well, it is. And it's not something that you unpack in a couple of days, for sure, but you can start unpacking it in a couple of days, and you can actually start to make changes and really see results and positive changes in a couple of days, but for sure it's a longer journey than that. Like nothing good in this life comes from a quick fix. It does take an investment of your time in yourself. But going back to when we talked about conscious versus subconscious mind. So our conscious mind is our thinking mind. So right now you're listening to me and you're hearing what I'm saying, and you have your conscious mind can accept or reject ideas. You can listen to me and say, do you know what this woman is saying, actually, it's really making sense to me. I really connect with this. Or you could be saying, no, don't agree with anything she's saying. And that is your choice. And as humans with a conscious mind, our conscious mind can accept or reject ideas. It can also originate ideas. Yeah. But our conscious mind is only responsible for 2 to 4% of everything that we do. So when you read a book, or you go to a seminar, or you listen to somebody like me for a half an hour, and you hear some ideas and you go, well, yeah, actually, I really get that. Like that makes sense. I'm going to implement that into my life. But you finish the book, you put the book back on the shelf. What happens to that idea? Do you implement it?
It's a very good question. Yeah. No, I'm loving this. I think it's great. And
so I'll answer that question very quickly. I'd say most people don't, and the reason that they don't is when you read a book or you go to a seminar, you take in the information in your conscious mind. You're interested in it, but it's just in your conscious mind, and your conscious mind is only responsible for 2 to 4% of everything that you do. So when the book goes back on the shelf, the idea goes back on the shelf with the book, and very quickly out of your conscious mind, because you're on to the next thing and the next book and the next idea and whatever. In order to implement anything, we have got to get those ideas and that information in at a subconscious level and create beliefs and habits around it so that we can operate from that place. Because 96 to 98% of everything we do every day is habitual and comes from the subconscious mind. Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely. Well, it does to me, because everybody's got your habits from when you were young, and if you go back from, like, I don't know, I often hear people say that you take traits from your father or your mother or your ancestors beforehand, and you bring them forward, and you go, no, I'm not. But then you look and you go, geez, I am doing things my father and my mother would have originally done. So that's really, really interesting. And the next question, I'm really pushing you here, Alana, but to break those habits, how are we going to do this? How can we actually? Is it through repetition of those aspects that you've indicated?
So it's a great question. So first and foremost, obviously, it's identifying, and that comes down to a little bit of mental housekeeping. And exactly like you said, so much of our beliefs and our habits have come from our parents, and some of them even our ancestors. We're from the moment we're conceived, we are being we're programmed. We're programmed genetically at conception, and that's we get 50% of our father's genes, 50% of our mother's genes, and voila, this incredible human is starts to be cooked. And then from the moment that we're born, we are absorbing. They talk about kids' brains being sponges. They take in everything, and that's why kids can learn languages like that. I lived in Egypt for years, and there'll be children walking around that have maybe an Egyptian father, a German mother, and then the common language through with everybody was English. And they'd literally be able to, at 3 years of age, just bounce from one language to the other without even a thought, because they don't have a conscious mind. So everything just is going into the subconscious. They have to learn it. It's there. They don't get the choice to say, actually, do you know what? I don't really like German. I'm just gonna learn the Arabic and English here. They have to take it on. But we have beliefs and habits going right back then, and that's why we do the things that we do. A lot of the time, you're not even aware why you do what you do. It's just I've always done it. I've always thought that way. But when we can start to identify and lots of things are positive. It's not like everything is a negative, but we've got some positive habits and beliefs that are, moving us forward in our lives. And then we've got some negative ones. When we do some housekeeping and we kind of identify, okay, well, what are my negative habits? What are my negative beliefs that aren't serving me? They're not moving me forward. Once we identify them, then we can start working on changing them.
And that's simple things. Maybe I'm on my phone too much in the evening time. And look, let's be honest, everybody is everybody has been doing that, myself included. But again, it's just trying to make simplicity of it all. If you're sitting looking at your phone till 12 o'clock at night, obviously you're going to be more stressed out. You're not going to go for that run in the morning. You're not going to. So there's a term there's a term I heard before. It's habit stacking, and it's kind of, you have to kind of protect yourself from those things as well, don't you, Alana?
Oh, absolutely. And look, we're constantly, picking up little bad habits. Like we didn't have a habit to sit on our phone 10 years ago because we didn't have a phone to sit on and scroll on 10 years ago. But yes, we've got so many little habits that, there's some deeper rooted ones, but like that, the likes of a phone, it's something that we didn't have. So we can easily eliminate that. But it does take, like anything, we all know how to form a habit. We've all formed habits, consciously or unconsciously. And I think a lot of people have formed them consciously. Maybe you've taken up running and got up and gone running every morning, or broken habits, stopped smoking, or whatever. And we know how to do it. But the problem is it's very simple, the method to create new habits, but it's also not easy because we're constantly being hijacked by our subconscious mind that's trying to keep us where we are in the habits that we've got right now. So the work has got to be put in, which is the repetition and the consistency for a period of time that's going to allow that habit to form so that we can form the new habit. So, it has to be done consistently. A habit has got to be done. They say anything from 20 to 90 days, but some even can be a little bit longer in order to create a new habit or to break an old one. But you do have to do that consistently. So it's not, the habits don't know that there's a weekend. So they don't know.
So what for you? What is the common things? Suppose we're nearly over 40 minutes here. We're just starting, Alana. There's another podcast in this, but and as we were saying, the sun is shining, so we want to get out to the beer garden very shortly. But the thing about it is that where do you start? Give us some basis of what we can do.
And do you know what? You start by reaching out, have a conversation, get in touch with a coach, and do I offer a free discovery call for anybody interested in exploring this, and just to get an understanding of what is involved, and if it is something that interests you, because some people are very want to, but we do say habits are very easy, very simple to change, but they're not easy, and a lot of the time people do need support. They need support, and they need accountability, and they need the information.
That's to the word
give them. Yeah, and that's, a lot of people think, oh, I'm going to think positive. I've got a positive mindset, and they get up every morning and they decide that they're going to, be positive and, look out and sing a song or whatever. And that only lasts for, a few days. We all have a certain amount of willpower, and that willpower is something that's good. It helps us to start to create a new habit.
Mm.
but it doesn't get us the whole way. And if we're constantly pushing and using willpower, which is what happens if you don't learn the information and how this works for yourself.
And I kind of rudely interrupted you there, and I said accountability.
Okay.
Yeah, and I do apologize, but it just struck me like accountability is something that you probably like if you go to the gym, and you know you've got your trainer there, he's there, you're going to put in a better effort. So accountability is probably something that we just don't like sometimes. Would that be fair to say?
Um, well, yeah, I suppose it is, but we don't like it if we don't want what it is that we're being held accountable for. So, this is something as well, going back to that clarity piece for me. When I work with my clients, the first when we go to setting goals, there's two prerequisites for setting a goal. And the first thing is it's got to be something you really want, not something that somebody else wants, not something that you think you should have or do or be, something you really want. So, like that, I might, and something that you're willing to do what it takes. So, you use the personal trainer, it's a great example. I really want to get fit. I don't want to run a marathon, but I'm like, oh, I'm going to get fit, I'm going to run a marathon. Am I going to get up every day and do the training that's required? Not if I don't really want to. And then I don't want somebody holding me accountable because actually it's not something that I have a burning desire to do.
And is that? I suppose we're touching on something else as well here. And is that something you find, or you touched on it a few times, was about really go after something you really want, not half want, not something you really, really want. Is that something you find people are? How do they get clarity on that?
So yeah, I think it's a really interesting one because you get a lot of people going, but I don't know what I want, or um, but I can't, I can't go after what I want because I have, four kids at home that, you have to put food on the table for, and or whatever. And people are putting off their lives the whole time. I don't have time. I don't have the time. I don't have the money. Um, and they're afraid to even. I always say people know what they want deep down, but a lot of the time they're afraid to admit it. They're afraid to admit it to themselves. They're afraid to admit it to anybody else because they're afraid if they admit it, then they might have to do something about it. And if they do something about it, then they're setting themselves up for potential failure or potential like what will it all again coming back to the fears. But I can't open up the box of wanting to have my own business, even though it's something that I do really want, because I'm afraid that I won't be able to put the food on the table. I'm afraid I'm going to fail. I'm afraid what other people are going to think. So I'm going to lock that dream away and I'm going to continue with the life that and the job that I'm doing that I don't particularly love, but it pays the bills and it keeps me on my treadmill. So it does. It takes bravery, I suppose, and I always say, the universe rewards the brave. If you look at any successful people in the world, they're willing to take risks and they're willing to do things that push them way out of their comfort zone. And sometimes it doesn't work out, but a lot of the time it does.
Yeah, that's it's an amazing way to look at things, Alana. And I'm sure, suppose, with your actual work and what you do, you get great joy out of seeing your clients, and supposed to become friends of yours through time, as well as when they come outside that zone, and push past the negatives that are probably deep in their mind as well.
Yeah. Oh, that's the joy, and the transformation is it happens quite quickly. And once they switch, then the results start to change, and then they start to show up. And like some of the messages I get from my clients and the testimonials are just it's incredible, because you really do, you have the privilege of changing the trajectory of somebody's life. I don't do it, they do it, but they do it because of the information that I'm able to share with them, and then the support that I'm able to give them. Because the only problem we have in this world is ourself, and the only solution we have is ourself. But again, as I said before, in order to unlock the solution in yourself, a lot of the time you do need the support of somebody else. And again, a little bit more information to turn that key. If you're left on your own, the negative monkey, this inner critic, and the paradigms come in and bombard you and keep you safe, which is keeping you stuck.
Well, Alana, you've been doing a lot of workshops. You had a couple of in-person workshops and online workshops, and conscious of your time. And where can people reach out and maybe explore more of what you do?
Well, obviously my website is a good place to start. So it's alive-experience.com. You can also find me on social media, LinkedIn, Alana Regan. I'm also have an Alive Experience page, and Instagram, Alive Experience also. So yeah, any of those places.
Before I let you go, you're glad you made the change 5 years ago. The amount of lives you've impacted now, and I suppose you're testament of your work.
Absolutely, and it's having been through that journey and knowing that there's another way. And I suppose, I would have been kind of a skeptic when it came to some of the self-development industry and mindset stuff when I first went out in this journey. But I did say to myself, do you know what? My way isn't working. This way, I'm not happy. I need to explore another way. And oh my gosh, am I glad I opened that door. And now, as I say, I do get the pleasure to bring other people through that door and show them another way, and really help them to live life on their terms, and experience the success that they want to experience. Success on your terms, whatever that means for you.
Look, Anna Regan from Life Experience, thanks very much for your insight, your inspiration, your actual tools, and all the different aspects you gave throughout today's podcast. It was brilliant, and no doubt our listeners are really going to be captured by this. And loads of little nuggets there, Alana. And as I say, they can check out Alana on her website and also on all the socials. Alana O'Regan, thanks very much for joining us here on the Breadwinners podcast.
Thank you, Pork. It's been an absolute pleasure. Great way to spend a Friday afternoon.
Thanks, Alana.